Do. All right. Well, it's a Thursday night, and we are doing a Las Vegas Triathlon Club member spotlight. And tonight we've got our Sergei Vasil. Oh, I knew I was gonna Vasilyev. Sorry, Sergey, could you say your last name?
Sure.
Vasilyev.
There you go. Bob got it. Sergei
Sergei
Vasilyev.
Vasilyev.
Yes.
Vasilyev, thank you. Yeah, this is great to have Sergey on here. He has been part of the club. I know Bob's going to give the longer introduction, but he's gotten involved. I've seen him race. He races hard. It's really great, and he's got a nice cycling background. I love his shirt, Carefresh Cycling, and I'm sure he's going to talk a little bit about that. So thank you, Sergey, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Bob for the official introduction.
Well, thank you, John, and welcome, Sergei. Really good to have you on here. For those folks who are out here watching, Sergei, as you can tell, he's not from around here, like they say in the South, from Kazakhstan. And did I say that right, Sergei?
That's
How do you say
correct.
Kazakhstan?
It is Kazakhstan, yeah.
Okay. And Sergei came to the States when he was 15 and came to Las Vegas. He's been, when he got to Las Vegas, started racing bikes for McGee's, and then went on to join the Carefast cycling team. So he's a competitive cyclist. And Sergei did not start doing triathlons, and we're going to talk about this. Started training for them about 2.5 years ago in 2019, and did his first triathlon with us, with the team, with the club in June. Is that right, Sergei? So you did June, then you did the August triathlon, and then you jumped right to a 70.3 and you did Santa Cruz. So
Yep, that was it. Two short ones and then the big one.
I know. And that brings up two questions. First of all, what brought you to the States? What brought you here?
Well, first, John and Bob, thank you for having me. I've definitely seen a lot of this, and I'm very happy to be the one being interviewed. So thank you. So what brought me to the U.S. In '95? There was a student exchange program sanctioned, I think, by the U.S. government called like Freedom Support Act or something like that. Basically, yeah, it was kind of like a selection of students who would come to the US and they would placed with families to go to high school for 1 year. So in '95, I did that, and I got randomly selected to go to California, to a city by Sacramento, a town called Roseville. So I spent the year there. I liked it. Then basically my host family said if I wanted to go to college, they will help me out. So I returned the following fall and enrolled in college. Completed my 4-year degree. Then I moved to Vegas to do my master's at UNLV. That's how I got to Vegas. After that, I stayed, basically got a job, got a work visa, kind of got sponsored for a green card, and on and on and on, and finally got my green card and recently became a US citizen. So that's kind of like the whole timeline of me getting to the US and how I got to Vegas and where I'm at right now.
Well, that's cool. We're glad to have you, and we're lucky to have you here in Vegas. But that leads me into the second question: is you became a competitive cyclist, and you were on 2 different cycling teams. Did you do cycling back in Kazakhstan, or did start that once you got here?
Yeah, I really did not do much sports back when I was growing up. I think my parents really wanted me to like do a lot of studying. Maybe that helped me to get to the US and kind of started hard. But yeah, eventually I always wanted to do some sports. So when opportunity came up, some guys said, hey, do you want to be on a team? I actually, prior to that, I went out and got like just a bike at McGee's because I wanted to ride bikes. And I rode it for about 3 months. And then some guys came up to me and said, hey, do you want to like ride with the group? So I started riding with a group, and then one thing led to another, and then basically a couple guys said, hey, McGee's has like this, you can start racing for them at a low level and kind of try it. So that's how it all started.
Like, hey, this guy is fast. It's like, we got to get him on our team.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I was really fast, but it was fun, and it was, I enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, it was a good experience to start. I think everybody thinks, since you've come from Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan has some history in cycling, maybe some not so good history, but it depends on how you look at it. Obviously, Alexander Vinokurov is the name that comes up. Yeah, but everybody's like, oh, you must be good. So anyways, yeah, but I mean, it is a pretty big sport in Kazakhstan. It's kind of considered one of the national sports, so it
That's cool.
kind of naturally I gravitated towards it.
Okay, now that leads me into one final question for me on this introduction thing. You went from a cyclist to a triathlete, and it's like, I look at Lance Armstrong. He was a triathlete first, found out how fast he was on the bike, and then he moved into professional cycling from triathlon. So what made you go the other way? It's like, from what I understand, is you really didn't have a whole lot of swimming background, and you kind of learned how to swim as an adult. Learned how to swim well. So what got you into triathlons?
Yes, that's so. Everything you said is correct. I still don't really swim well, but I will talk about that a little bit, I guess. So a couple of things that got me into trying triathlons. First of all, kind of cycling racing kind of was on a decline in general. It was really hard to race and be competitive. It almost seemed like anywhere we wanted to race, you had to travel far, like to go to California or Utah, and then you would kind of race the same people, and it was just getting kind of a little bit, I wouldn't say boring, but repetitive, and I wasn't really getting the results I wanted either. So just driving somewhere and to just participate wasn't really something I kept in, I wasn't enjoying it anymore.
Right.
So, and then why triathlon? Because, well, that's another question. So I would travel to Kazakhstan back and forth a lot, and I would usually take my bike with me, and I would just ride in Kazakhstan by myself. And one time in like 2015, or maybe like even earlier, I was just riding with some people, and some guys started talking to me about like, where you from? They thought I was like foreigner, because by that time I had a pretty heavy accent. Actually, when I would go home, people think I wasn't from.
Yeah, we had an American accent. You mean?
Exactly.
Wow.
I already started having a reverse accent. So, anyways, long story short, I became friends with this one guy who was a triathlete and also was a cyclist, and we became really good friends since then. And actually, he's one of my best friends right now. But the little I knew, he was a guy, a triathlete, and he was actually training for Ironman. So long story short, one day he basically called me and said, hey, I'm coming to the US. I'm going to go to Florida to do this Ironman. I don't know anything about Florida, or I don't know the language. Can you help me out? And I said, sure, I'll come to Florida. I'll meet you. I'll help you out with logistics and stuff like that. So that was actually my first introduction to a triathlon. Like, I was like, this is triathlon. Like, this guy is doing it for 9 hours. What the heck is going on? So, but I actually did really enjoy that. He took a 4th place in his age group, and unfortunately didn't qualify for Kona because the top 3 guys took the slots. And but that was a very interesting experience. He went back home, went to China, and qualified for Kona like 2 months later.
Wow.
So my second trip.
I was going to say, that's really great that you started in triathlon as a Sherpa. You kind of like paid your dues from that. That's glad to hear that.
So I actually do know a lot of like insides of like all the logistics and everything that it takes to actually prepare for a race. So that actually, I think, helps me now. But yeah, so my second trip to an Ironman race was Kona in 2017, because I went with my now friend Pavel, who is now actually my coach. So and then he went back to Kona in 2019. So I've been kind of traveling to Kona every other year with him, except obviously this year because it was in St. George. So we went to St. George for the half Ironman World Championship.
And you're interpreting all the way as well, right?
Trying not to. I'm trying to have him like speak some English, but I'm basically yeah, helping him out a lot with language and stuff.
Oh, like Bob said, what a neat way
I
to
know.
learn the sport from not being involved. Okay, so now talk us through uh, when you decided to do a triathlon and how when you started training for one.
I think 2018 we were just like my buddy Pavel just took a second slot to Kona. That was in Florida. It wasn't in Panama City because Panama City had a hurricane and they moved the race over to Orlando. So, anyways, he just won. We were sitting, drinking, celebrating. And I'm like, you know what? That'd be cool if I tried it. Just but why not? Like, do you think I can do it? So I asked my buddy. He's like, sure, you can do it, but like, and I'm like, how long do you think it's going to take me to? And I was like, for the record, I don't know how to swim. Like, to be
Oh
honest
no.
with you, I never learned how to swim. When I was a little kid, I went to my parents wanted me to learn to swim, so they took me to a swimming lesson. It was in winter. I did one swimming lesson, got super sick, never went back. So until about 2 years ago, I could literally swim like 15 yards and I would be dead, like out of breath, had to stop. So obviously, when I first said, yeah, I'm interested in doing triathlons, I really was like, that was a dumb idea to start with. Like, I don't know how to swim. I can barely run. I can bike. That's fine. But there's two other disciplines I really didn't know much about or I didn't have any experience with. So yeah, we kind of started slow. And that's why it took me I didn't really want to participate just to participate. I knew I could probably train for a decent result, and that's why it took me 2 years.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
but
did you have a race picked out at that stage and you were targeting it? And also you said your friend is coaching you now. Did he start out coaching you or did you start out on your own?
no, he started coaching me as basically we had a friendly kind of exchange. I Sherped him on all the races. He coached me, so like I'm
I
not
like it.
paying the coach, which is kind of a good deal. Yeah, but we basically since I'm a pretty realistic person and I like to plan things, I'm like, hey, let's just think this through. How long do you think it's going to take me to do well, let's not even talk about full Ironman because I've seen people finishing full Ironman and like, yeah, I don't think I can do that. So I said, let's just see if we can do like a half. How long do you think it's going to take me to do half? And he said, well, a couple of years. So, and that was in
How
2017,
long? Say again.
2 years. That's what he
Okay.
said. So we started in 2017. The only problem is he's remote. He lives in Kazakhstan, and all my coaching is pretty much remote, with few exceptions when he is in the States or I go home and we kind of see each other in person. So yeah, I've been learning how to swim through YouTube videos and like short video clips he sends me. Anything I knew about running was wrong. So like I ran, so I had to completely learn how to run to be injury free and kind of like make sure I'm able to sustain the long distance running. Cycling became very different type of cycling training because I went from like racing where you have to sprint and you have to do a lot of intervals and kind of a lot of rest. Because it's just either criterium racing where it's full gas and rest, versus kind of longer races where you kind of try to sit in as much as you
Right, you got to
can,
pace.
right? Yeah. And this is individual. So this is definitely a completely different type of preparation, a lot more kind of lower intensity, but longer training. So yeah, and I'm a big equipment buff. So I like cycling, I like
Oh yeah.
TT, and it's that's cool stuff, like having like TT bike and all the toys that go with it. That's a cool part.
Now, before we go any further, you really piqued my interest when you said you had to learn how to run, especially learn how to run without getting injured. What was the story there? What is it that you were doing wrong, and what is it that you learned?
Well, I kind of thought I knew how to run because I was pretty okay in running in like high school and maybe when I was a little younger. And then I kind of gave it all up and I played a little bit of college football actually when I was in college here in the US. I was like a kicker, so I was like, I don't really need to do anything, just kick the ball a couple times a game. So really didn't have any cardio. But anyways, so running how I used to run, like very long strides, very low cadence, like kind of like
Loping, like a
exactly,
gallop.
yeah, like, and obviously that was the recipe for all sorts of pains and like
hamstring tears and all
injuries.
kind of stuff.
And my knees were hurting, shins were hurting. So basically, yeah, just like had to slowly relearn up the cadence, shorten the stride. And even still, I'm still think there's a lot more room for improvement in my running. So just it's gonna take time.
Hold on there. I saw your half Ironman time. You did a 1:53 off a 21 mile an hour bike. So your running's in pretty good shape.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's that experience was very humbling, but at the same time, I was super happy. When I went to Santa Cruz, we really had two. Well, I was joking. I had two goals and one optional goal. Two goals were like not to drown and not to poop my pants during the race. Like seriously, I've actually seen people do that. I was like, oh, it's gonna be very embarrassing. So, and then third one was like, I read somewhere and I literally just like Googled what is the average half Ironman time, and there was like somebody did statistics and said it's about 6 hours. Like literally, like that was if you take average across a lot of races, a lot of athletes, it's 6 hours. So like statistical average. I'm like, okay, 6 hours would be good. So that's what I was shooting for, 6 hours. Yeah, and then because I'm still really not good at swimming, and that's probably in my head. I prefer cold races where I can have a wetsuit. It's obviously Santa Cruz was a default choice. Like, hey, it's always cold out there, so I can probably swim and not drown. Yeah, and the beautiful part of that race is they close PCH, Highway 1, and you get the whole highway to yourself. It's beautiful.
Oh, how cool.
You don't need to worry about cars, and the scenery is great if you can enjoy that part. And the day of the race, we got super lucky because the wind didn't start until we turned around, and then we had a tailwind all the way back.
That's awesome.
So that's probably why the bike was pretty fast. And well, I was okay with the run. I wanted to go a little bit faster, but I started cramping and had to slow down. So
yeah, you still averaged 8:28, just over 8 minutes a mile. So it's pretty good for.
Well, I love this story going from where you literally could not swim to where you do a half Ironman. So how far did you work up in the pool for a swim in terms of a distance?
Yeah, good question.
So I think I literally was comfortable with swimming about maybe 2,000 meters.
Okay.
Well, obviously without fins or anything else, right? So my time was probably about an hour in the pool, but obviously it's a short pool and you do a lot of turns. So when I swam 40 minutes in the race, I was like,
that's awesome.
Something's wrong here. Maybe my watch is wrong because I didn't see the time until I finished, obviously. But watch said like 41 minutes, and I was like, I must have like hit stop.
That's fantastic. Wow, I mean that's
a great time.
But a lot of it is, I think, is strategic. Like I ended up. Well, first part of the swim was it's around the.
Around the pier.
Yeah. So first part you're going out, and then you kind of coming in with the waves a little bit. And then I also found some people I just sat behind on the way back, kind of helped me a little bit because a little drafting never hurts in the water. No. So I think that helped me too. But the first part is really hard. Everybody's hectic. Everybody kind of swims cross-eyed, and like there's a lot of touching and trying to get away from people. But I think everybody settles in the second part, and that's what helped me to kind of swim straight, swim behind somebody, and get into the finish of the swim kind of.
Oh, I love it. But I want to back up just a little bit because you've already been to a couple of races as Sherpa, interpreter, guide, and now you're at this race, and this is your race. and you've done a lot of training to get ready for it, including the swim. What was it like going into the race as an athlete versus being new to the sport and seeing it from that other angle?
Um, it was obviously completely different. My wife was there. A lot of my friends were there. Actually, my coach was there because he was racing, and another buddy of his were racing. But we made a deal, like everybody races for themselves. There's like no helping. We're all good. Yes. So that's what we did. And basically, once the race started, it was just all blur. Like I focused on what I need to do. Like I kind of maybe remember a few things as far as like fans or the surroundings, but really, yeah, once the race started, it's all focus on what you need to do.
Oh,
Well,
that's
that's awesome that you got started. You were that calm for your first 70.3, but backing that up a little bit, your first race was in June, was in Lake Mead, the triathlon. I'd like to hear about that. Tell me what that was like when you were on the starting line, and were you one of the rare people who didn't get out of breath in the first 200 yards in your first race, or did you calm down and tell
Yeah.
us
I think
about
my
that?
heart rate was pretty high, like even starting. I think my starting heart rate was like 170 when I hit start because it was already pretty amped up.
Yeah.
So actually, my first race was supposed to be Coca-Cola in like May.
oh,
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously my friend Pasha called me like, hey man, I need your help. I'm going to Tulsa to do an Ironman in Tulsa. It was the same weekend. So I'm like, okay, I'll skip Coca-Cola. I'll go to Tulsa with you. So at that point of time, I was already kind of like knew I was going to do a race. So I took my bike to Tulsa. We did some training together. I swam in like cold water there.
Mm-hmm.
We did some running. So I kind of was already mentally preparing for longer races. But doing sprint is a very different animal. It's more intense, shorter distance, so you have to go a lot higher intensity.
mhm.
So yeah, so I was obviously every time I drive from Boulder City down to the lake, already getting like the little butterflies,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is a good thing because you preparing yourself versus if you just calm and like I don't know. I always get butterflies before the race, so that's good in my opinion.
It's kind of like a friend that, it's like, oh yeah, here it comes. And
Exactly.
you know it's coming. It's a big part of it. I enjoy it too.
Yeah, I think Vegas racing is unique. Like we obviously have a very unique venue where like I think I cut all my feet the first race. I was like, oh,
Sure.
well, this is
They don't call it Boulder Beach for nothing.
exactly. So if you can do a transition on Boulder Beach, you can do it anywhere. I think that's
That's
the thing.
great.
That's
Yeah.
one. Two is like that run uphill is like, oh my God, that was like the worst ever. I think I almost blacked out by the time we got to the top. And then finally, yeah, it was at the turnaround, I was like, okay, I got this. I think I'll be able to finish. And obviously
Oh, you
once
mean on the bike? That bike?
not on the bike, no, I'm talking about the run. Bike is also like it is tricky because you have to climb out to get to the road.
Mhm.
But on the bike, I'm like, calm down, just keep the same power, take it steady up the climb, and then you can start doing your TT thing. So I'm not really worried about the bike. It's the run I was really worried about because obviously it was the first time I raced running after the bike versus training, and obviously heart rate was high. Going up that uphill is definitely
How'd your legs feel
I don't
come,
remember.
coming off the bike?
It was also getting very hot. It
Yeah.
didn't seem like it's going to be hot in the morning, but as soon as the sun came up, it was getting warm. And yeah, again, as I said, never really done a race where I would get off the bike and start running like pretty much full gas. So I don't remember much. I remember that I almost passed out
Uh-huh.
running up to the top.
That is a tough run course, and
It
getting
is.
up that hill and then being on the path, you still have some little rollers up there, so that is hard. All right, so but you did your first race, and that must have felt really good.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely good. I think I don't really care about the results, but like I was like mid pack, and I was like, okay, that's good. I'm not the last one. Because when we started swimming, like everybody passed me. I'm like, oh, I got to be the last one. I swear, this is not good. I came out of water, and there's actually people in the water still. So I'm like, okay,
That's a little better. That was probably one of them.
Well, that's great. I think that's a perfect example of how to use the club races to help get ready for another race. All right, so now we're almost out of time, believe it or not.
Wow.
But I want to get back to Santa Cruz, and your bike ride you must have been coming in off the swim and just really looking forward to the bike ride. Is that right?
I was actually, I felt like super good, like swimming. Um, Actually, as I said, on the way back from the pier, I was pretty much resting. Like I wasn't really going hard because I knew I was drafting and was getting enough speed to be comfortable. So out of the water, I was relatively relaxed and obviously wasn't tired.
Very smart.
We got to the bike. Like the bike, the first part in Santa Cruz, you go through this kind of like along the water on this like super curvy road until you kind of get onto the highway. I enjoy that part. I feel like I was like a MotoGP passing people.
Oh, neat.
You're in a criterion again.
I was pretty comfortable with bike handling there. So, and then the bike was perfect. Like I had it all set up. I was concerned it's going to be windy, but still had the disc and like a deep wheel in the front,
Mhm.
and basically everything worked fine. As soon as I came on Highway 1, I hit those crazy rumble strips,
Mm,
and next thing I know, like my Garmin flew off, and
mm,
I'm like, oh great! I had
yeah.
to stop, pick it up, put it back on, like, and then I got really mad, and then like I think adrenaline kicked in, and I started going harder. The interesting part was, I guess, I was pretty far back in the swim start because it was in waves, and I was like, yeah, I'm a pretty slow swimmer. I'm gonna be in like a 40 to 45-minute corral. Um, there was a lot of people on the road already, and literally it was like just people after people. So kind of having people as rabbits where you kind of chase them and pass them give me a
Well,
little
you
bit
were in your
more.
element, weren't you?
Yeah, I was like on the left, get out my way, kind of thing. So yeah, and again, I was very surprised it wasn't windy. So that was a huge plus. Like so that I knew I was making really good time, and that was just motivating me even more.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So then you complete the bike and you got on the run and you said you ended up having some cramps. So tell me about the finish. You must have overcome some of the cramps, and what was the finish like?
Yeah, so it's actually let's start like halfway on the bike. I had a pretty good like hydration and food strategy, which worked out pretty good. And cramping wasn't because of I think the food; it was cramping was because of like the heat and maybe salt intake. But like energy wise, I was good. And on the bike, I think I was overhydrated because like closer to the end of the bike, I was like, I really have to pee. And like I didn't want to stop because I was making really good times. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to a transition. There's gonna be a porta potty in there. I'm just gonna do my thing there. So I come in, change, go out on the run, and like there's no porta potties. I'm like, oh, this is not good. And I'm asking like people, hey guys, where's the bathroom? Like, and you can't like just stop because there's tons of people out there. And they're like, yeah, it's like there a little bit. So I ran like for 2K, and then finally a bathroom. And there's 3 porta potties, and they're all taken. I'm like, oh, and like I'm standing there for a minute already. I'm like,
Oh
come on,
no.
guys, you guys have to come out. And so finally somebody did.
Mhm.
So I lost a little bit of time there,
Yeah, you did.
and then I started running. If you know about Santa Cruz, it's part of it is on dirt. So you run into this kind of like a state park, and it goes along this really beautiful cliffs that drop into an ocean, and there's like waves and mist.
Wow.
It's really cool if you like sightseeing. And I did a run in that area as like a recon run, so I kind of knew. But it's very rutted and not even surface. So it looks like where the water runs on it, it becomes like a really
Right.
big, like an angled drain. So you have to be very careful, and like potentially you can hurt your ankles or even like fall or something. So anyways, I talked to a few guys about like specifically cramps because I was concerned, and then a couple guys advised, actually a few guys on the team that do endurance races and stuff like, and we have a few guys who've done triathlons in the past. They're like, hey, just if you do this, like stop and eat and drink at every rest area. You're not going to lose much time. So I actually done that pretty much at every rest area. I would just drink no matter what. And I think that helped to keep my cramps under control. But then the sun came up in the second part of the race, and that's where I really got the feeling that I was cramping. So I definitely had to slow down and just manage cramps. Like at first I got one leg, then the second leg, I'm like, oh, now I have both legs. And now I'm gonna have to stop. But I basically paced myself, slowed at every stop, drank Gatorade, try to avoid like caffeine and stuff like that. And then basically, once I got back to the waterfront, like with 5K to go, it was basically a lot of people cheering you on, and I knew I had a good time. So when I finished, the clock said like 5:58. I was like, oh, this is under 6 hours. This is awesome. But I didn't realize it was from the pro start. So when I actually looked, it was like 5:24 or something like that. I was like, wow, this is really cool. But so yeah, that was
that's awesome. I mean,
Santa Cruz.
that is awesome. I mean, it's so impressive to hear you starting off your training with really no swim background. You do a sprint race and then you go right into the half. I think it's great for people to hear the progression that you made. I'm just curious, what's the best advice that you heard along the way as you got ready for Santa Cruz?
Well, two things. I think the best training is racing. That's why you like have to do all the local races. I mean, they're here. You don't have to go anywhere. I mean, you kind of have to go to Lake Mead. For me, it's kind of far, but it beats traveling to California for bike racing for sure. So that's that. Just do all the local races you can. Because participation, you just get to pick up all little things like transitions and just even you get to learn your local course. So maybe you can even do a better time next time, because that did help me with the Las Vegas Tri and the Pumpkin Man, because I did those two right after. And
just for the record, for everybody, Sergei podiumed on both of those races.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you. I did enjoy Pumpkin Man, even though that was a beat down. I think the gentleman who took a first place beat me by like 39 minutes, which is pretty humbling, because I remember him. I was leaving for my run and he was already coming in to finish. I'm like, oh,
well, that's a heck of a climb.
It is a heck of a climb, and the run isn't easy either, because it's kind of like downhill all the way and then uphill all the way. After you turn
Sergei,
around.
in addition to that's a good advice for folks is, you learn a lot when you race and do the local races, and train through the races. One thing that you said that was really impressive is the fact that you realized it was going to take 2 years to train, and you didn't rush that. I mean, that's a big feather in your cap to know that you don't jump into this, and it's okay. It's okay to develop, build this up slowly.
Well, I think another one is probably get a coach who can pace you through, who take you through the paces. I mean, I know a lot of people who are capable of doing it themselves, but I mean, I felt like I need all the help I can get. So yeah, definitely coaching or advice would be a big plus.
And that's good advice.
Those are two excellent points. Like Bob said, getting to know your courses, race everything, and then and get advice. And again, that's impressive what you did with the running and the swimming in terms of getting advice and also just learning and being open to it. So, Sergei, this is so great to hear your story. I did not know any of this, and it's really neat to hear you go from where you were in Kazakhstan to you're doing Santa Cruz. And just quickly, what are you looking forward to in 2022?
Well, I think I got so excited about this great result, I guess, to me, in Santa Cruz, that I signed up for 5 races next year.
All right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I wanted 6. My coach kind of said, hey, let's just do 5, and then you can do like smaller races locally. So hopefully, if everything stays as is or gets better with travel and COVID, I'll be going back to Santa Cruz. I love that.
Mhm.
I think it's the only way to measure how good you are, because every course is different. So you can't compare times. You can only compare times on the same race. So I'm going back to Santa Cruz. I am gonna I'm gonna go to St. Petersburg, Russia for half Ironman, because that's kind of my way of saying I can race and have my 1-year wedding anniversary on the
Oh,
same
how cool.
weekend.
Congratulations. That's
So
awesome.
because we got married in July this summer, and because of COVID, only like not basically nobody could come, but we already waited a year, and we basically had to do it. So yeah, I'm coming back for my anniversary, and I'm kind of doing the race the same weekend.
Oh, congratulations. That's
That
great.
that's the only reason I was allowed to race.
Wow. Yeah, that's great to be able to travel and do races. So that's pretty neat. Sergey, this has been really great. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and talking triathlon and your background.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, Sergey, and it was fun talking to you, and I learned a little bit too. So thanks a lot.
Glad to speak with you guys. I hope I can see you in person soon. And obviously, this is awesome experience for me, and hopefully everybody who's listening.
Great. All right. Well, thanks so much. Have a nice night.
Okay, thanks guys. Have a good one.